Hello, everyone, and welcome to BiohackersLab. I'm your host, Gary Kerwin, and on today's episode, I have Daniel Georgiev. Daniel is a software developer based in Sofia, Bulgaria, and he is the inventor of a piece of software called Iris, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And this piece of software is designed to help the health of our eyes. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today, Daniel.
Thank you for your invite.
So, you're Bulgarian, and I just didn't say your name completely correctly. Would you mind just saying your first name and your surname in Bulgarian, or how you would say it?
In Bulgarian, it's Daniel Georgiev.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll get that right. Georgiev. I like that. Georgiev. But yeah, so the reason I got you on today, Daniel, is because, like I introduced you, you're the man behind a piece of software that I see is up and rising, and is definitely a passion of mine, which is protecting your eyes from excessive blue light when you're using computers or your smartphone, your iPad, whatever happens to be. So that's what I want to be going deeper into today. So if you wouldn't mind starting us off, what's the story behind you creating this piece of software?
So, at 17, I started working on one big software company, GameLoft. We made games, and I have two big monitors, two big screens, and then after the long hours, my eyes started burning. After 6 months, maybe. I started wearing sunglasses outside. It was like I was Batman. And my condition got really serious. I started using a lot of eye drops. And at one point, I got to the eye doctor and he told me that I need to put glasses. And this was the first time in my life that I need to put some eyewear. My vision was perfect my entire life. And after this point, I just decided this thing needs to change. I started reading everything on the internet, all the medical researches, everything about monitors, eye health, and started using some programs like Workray, Flux. This is when I heard about Flux. And the first version of Iris was just one timer, which was locking my screen every 30 minutes to force myself to go and look at distant objects. After this, I started using Flux, I remember, and I needed manual control of the blue light. And I wrote to the guys behind it, and they just didn't respond to me for months, and I just decided to add it to Iris, and this is how Iris got its blue light feature. And this is the story. Left my job, drop out school, everything that normal people with crazy ideas do.
Cool. So it sounds like, you had a passion because you got into gaming software, and because you were having to sit in front of a computer screen for so long that you were getting a negative effect on your eye health, and that's why you wanted to biohack your eye health.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned Flux because that's what I found interesting. I've been using Flux on my computer for years, and you felt that Flux wasn't enough for your needs.
Well, I hated that it was automatic. I needed everything to be manual on my machine, and there was the sunset and sunrise things which I didn't understand. I just wanted no blue light during the day and night, and it was not so good for me. And Flux is project for, 8 years old, while Iris is just 1 year or 2 years, something like this. And what was the question?
I was just saying you found Flux wasn't meeting your needs, and that's why you created Iris.
They didn't care about their users. I was super nice, wrote to them, can you add me this feature? I really want it, and they just didn't respond to me.
Okay, and that's why you went, okay, I'm going to add the features or the settings that I want.
Well, I'm a programmer. Why not make... I started making Iris for myself. It was not meant to be a business or a software or anything like this. I just wanted to solve my own problem with the eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool. And that's how most things happen in life, where you try to fix your own situation, and you have the skill base to be able to do that by knowing how to program these things. And
Yes.
if anyone listening to this, if they don't have the software already, it's a slick piece of software. I must say, it's even your user interface is quite cool. So it's nice to use. Okay, so we've sort of touched on the main feature, which is blue light. If you could just educate people then a little bit who don't realize how much blue light actually comes off our typical LED screen or LCD screen, like a TV, a laptop, a smartphone, like an iPhone.
Well, the important thing is that the light coming from our digital screens is not full spectrum sunlight, and this is not so healthy. The blue light thing is because we have one photoreceptor in the eyes called melanopsin, and when it detects blue light or light with this wavelength, UV or other light, it just stops the secretion of our sleep hormone, melatonin. The other thing is that blue light with the light with the shortest wavelength reaches really deeply into our eyes, and this causes over the years macular degeneration and other other problems. Actually, iris, the main feature of iris is the brightness, not the blue light. I don't believe the blue light is much of a problem. I think the brightness is the bigger problem, and this not matching the light sources in the room, the flicker of the monitor, and this for me is the bigger problem in the modern monitors.
Yeah, okay, because you've also done. People might not realize you've done a TED talk in Bulgaria, haven't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so I'll share that in the show notes too for everyone to watch that. And you did mention on your TED talk how we're talking about the two major benefits is that you can manipulate the blue light exposure with your software, but it's that flicker rate, or what you've got to maybe help me here. It's PWM, which is pulse wave modulation, is it? Or
yes, pulse width modulation.
Pulse width modulation. So could you just explain what is, because that sounds like the major benefit that you feel you're going to get from using Iris.
So the thing is that the cheapest way to control the brightness of the monitor is to change the flicker rate of the backlight. This flicker rate is really high and we don't perceive it normally. Our brain doesn't allow us to perceive it. It's really smart. But to control the brightness, manufacturers make the monitor so when you lower the brightness, you make bigger breaks in the flicker rate, and actually the flicker rate is lower. So, for example, it's like turning the light on and off all the time, and your eye starts contracting like this. This is your iris, and it starts making contractions just like a muscle. And this is the reason why our eyes hurt when we sit in front of the computer. It's not the blue light per se or something else, but it's the not matching of the brightness in the room and this flicker rate of the monitor, which is not normal to look. It's like training your eyes all the time, but this training actually hurts our eyes.
Okay, so and you said that gets worse when you turn the brightness of the monitor down. Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah. So for me, that's interesting because a lot of people think, no, I'm going to help my eyes by turning the brightness down. But you're saying when you turn the brightness down, it's creating a bigger gap in the flicker rate, and then that's actually causing your eyes to work harder. So I've turned the brightness down, thinking I'm going to help my eyes, but it's actually
you're doing the opposite.
Yes.
And this is why iris brightness works in different way. It's not controlling the flicker rate, but it's moving the white point and doing some things with the video card. It's just a software solution for this problem, and this is really the innovation which no one done before.
Yeah, that piece of information alone makes you completely different to the education I believe other pieces of software are trying to do when they say, "Oh, we're going to help your eyes," because I didn't know that. So
basically, with normal monitor, modern monitors, these eye-friendly things, they use DC dimming. They don't use pulse width modulation. They basically the eye-friendly monitors, which are really expensive, they use different brightness changing, and you can lower the brightness without having the problem with the flicker rate. But with monitors with pulse width modulation, it's actually better if even during the night you use it at full brightness, and maybe you turn the light on to match the lightness in the room.
Yeah, that's again fascinating to think. It's just that training that people think, but late at night I might turn my phone brightness down or turn the brightness down on my laptop. But that's why I found fascinating with yours is that you're saying no, keep it at that maximum brightness, because the way that the monitor works, you're going to get less of that flicker. But then that's where you use the settings on your software, Iris, to actually change the coloring and also change that pulse width modulation within the screen without knowing it.
Again, it depends if it's using DC dimming or dimming with changing the. I can translate it, but if it's not using pulse width modulation, it's okay to turn the brightness down. But if it's using pulse width modulation, it's better to turn it all the way up and maybe turn your lights on, because the second important thing is that your room lighting should match your monitor brightness. It's your monitor should look like a book, not like a light source. For example, during the day, monitors don't look bright, but during the night, you see this blue glow or red glow if you use Iris, and you need to try to minimize this difference. You need to make your monitor look like a book all the time.
Okay, so that also means then at night, even when you're using Iris, if you've got it on, we'll talk about one of the different settings, which is called Biohackers mode, which is cool. But that's a very red color. So you're even saying another optimal way is if you're going to use your device, also make sure, say, you have one of those low blue light bulbs, like a red colored light bulb in the room too, so the ambient color around your device is also close to red, because that would help.
Well, this is not, because the standard light bulb, the Thomas Edison light bulb, it's good. It emits light from 1900 kelvins, which is good. It doesn't emit so much blue light, but some light bulbs emit a lot of blue light, and it's not healthy. You need to make your room lighting also not emitting blue light at night.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe something I don't know if people might realize, but LED bulbs, which are seen as energy efficient, emit a lot of blue light, don't they?
And they flicker also. They also have pulse width modulation.
Okay, so
you did not know this.
Yeah, so people would think, no, I'm going to install LED light bulbs because it's energy efficient in my house and it gives a brighter light. But it's actually creating more blue light plus the flicker, plus this pulse width modulation issue.
Yes, and it's actually worse for the eyes. The standard light bulb is not energy efficient. A lot of heat generating light bulb. This is the best light bulb that humanity has created.
Again, this is the interesting thing when you go down the information rabbit hole, when you look at things going, oh, but I have companies telling me I have to buy LED bulbs because it's more energy efficient, but then actually what they've seen is from a health side, maybe that's not very healthy for you, which I find interesting.
Well, it depends. If you want less bills, you buy the energy efficient, but you care about your health, maybe buy some not so energy efficient light bulb.
So when you were saying the difference with that DC monitor and the pulse width modulation, would you say that most modern digital screens use the pulse width modulation? So I'm thinking your current smartphones, Android devices, iOS devices, and laptops. Are they more in the pulse width modulation that naturally? Is that just what the manufacturers make?
Most monitors, desktop monitors, use pulse width modulation, but most phones they use DC dimming. I'm not sure why, but I know that the percentage of phones which use pulse width modulation is lower than the percentage of desktop monitors. Maybe because of the bigger matrix of the screen. So the thing about LEDs is that if they are turned on constantly, they will burn, and you need to turn them on and off to lower the heat and to not to extend their life. This is the second reason why manufacturers use low frequency of the backlight to extend the life of the monitor. Our monitors is 10-year warranty, and to make this 10-year warranty, they lower the flicker rate so the LEDs will last longer.
Okay. So yeah, so the lowering of that flicker rate is helping to keep the product sustainable for longer.
Yes.
And
this is why something that most people will not tell you. The best screen is the ink Kindle screen.
Yeah, because anyone who hasn't been on your website, I saw one of the biohacks, or not biohacks, really like a computer hack that you did, which I found fascinating, because I've always thought the e-ink screens, those like on a Kindle book, that's so pleasant on your eyes, and it's a selling point as to why people would use a Kindle. Amazon itself says, oh no, look, you can use this whilst you're sitting on a beach and it's bright because you can still read it. But you were able to show that you could actually convert that into a usable computer screen.
Yes, I did this for myself to try something. Actually, one of my ideas was to make e-ink monitors, but step by step. I first need to make Iris a successful product.
Yeah, because I thought, why has no one converted e-ink technology into laptop technology that I would have a choice? I just found that fascinating because I thought, yeah, it's so good for your eye health. So if there's someone who doesn't need lots of color to do their work on their computer, then that's a good system to use. So.
Yes, but it's not so fast. You can't watch movies, and people like us are a minority. The majority of people, they want to play games, they want to watch movies, they want glossy screens, which are actually really bad. The matte screen is better than the glossy screen, and actually, people the demand is for the bad thing. The demand is for the thing which is unhealthy, as always.
Yeah. So, and is that a good tip then for people when they're looking to buy laptops? Because you don't really get matte on phones, do you? You don't get an option to have a matte screen on your.
Yes.
You do?
No, but you have some protection and some.
Like a film that you can put over the screen.
Yes, you can put a film on your screen, and it's the same.
Okay. But when you order a laptop or a desktop computer screen, there's an option sometimes to have a matte, is there?
Yes, you have the choice, but the matte screen has the colors are a little bit different. So for designers and people who work with colors, it's important to have a glossy screen. And on glossy screen, you can always place a film over it and make it matte. Okay. The matte screen is basically a film which diffuses the light, not to enter your eyes directly like a mirror.
So are you a fan of using those films that you can put over?
No, all my screens are matte. Actually, my laptop screen is glossy, and I don't use it at all. The laptop, only for testing Iris.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I have seen. I'm sure you have too, where there's products out there that say put this film over the screen to minimize blue light exposure.
Yes, but actually Iris is more effective. For example, the glasses maybe. The problem with everything is that you also need to reduce a little bit of the green light. So because the green light also has some blue light in it, it's not like green emits only green, blue emits only blue, and red emits only red. You need to also reduce the green light to reduce the blue light.
Okay.
If you use spectrometer to measure the screen, you'll see this.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the next questions I want to also get on to really where we're going now is the devices that you can install Iris on. So we've talked about that laptops is a given. So we're talking both MacBooks and Windows-based laptops. You can install your software on there.
Linux also.
Linux too, yeah. I always forget about that. But then we're also, I guess, practically what I would want is thinking for the majority of people, because they might use a laptop, but so many people are using their phones instead, or their tablets, computers, like an iPad, for example. And I know Apple. I'm going to use Apple for example here. That they have been very restrictive on allowing software that can manipulate the blue light. Because I remember with Flux, everyone was asking, "Oh, why can't I install Flux on my iPhone, or why can't I install Flux on my iPad?" And they said, "No, Apple's just not letting us get into the App Store." And I believe you've got the same issue, right? You can't get into the App Store.
Well, I have Iris for iOS, but you need to reinstall it every week because of the Apple restriction. It's not jailbreak version; it's a version for normal phones. It has the sliders for blue light and brightness, but actually, I avoid a little the mobile phones, once because they're restricted, and second because they have some native solution. For example, iOS has night shift, which good maybe, and Android has also night light, I think, something like this. And the phones have some solution, but the major problem, the bigger screens are the desktop, and I want to make my focus. I always want to have some focus, and my focus right now is to make the best possible desktop version, and then to make the other versions great. Actually, Iris works also has version for Android and for iOS, but they are only versions with sliders. They are not automatic like the desktop version.
Okay.
For example, the desktop version do everything automatically based on time, based on location, based on everything, and has different modes and types. Some modes are just not possible on the phone. For example, reading mode, if you use Windows, and it also is available on Mac, it can be done on iOS and on Android. The Android solution is to use overlay, like Twilight. There is some app in the Play Store which uses overlay. Iris is also using overlay. The second solution is to root your phone and use native light changing, like Flux for Android is doing. And yes.
Okay, so at the moment you would say the software is more suited towards use on desktops and laptops. You can get it on your phone or your tablet PC, but it's a bit hacky to get it on there.
No, it's not hacky. It's for Android. It's in the Play Store, but it's just not so good.
Okay, it doesn't give you all the features.
Yes, it's really good. I work on it all the time, and when I start working on the Android version and the iOS version all the time, they will be great too.
Okay, but so currently I can get it from the Android Play Store.
Yes.
Okay.
If you open the Iris website from your Android and you click the download button, it will redirect you to the free version of Iris called Iris Mini in the Play Store. Actually, if you write Iris Mini in the Play Store, Google Play, in the Google Play, you'll see it.
Okay, good to know. Sorry, because I use Apple, so I don't live in the Android world.
The Apple Store is different. They just don't want this kind of application, and I can't submit it to the App Store. Actually, I will make an application, but it will be a browser, a desktop browser for eye protection. And basically, all the websites that you're browsing, you'll see Iris on it. But the native feature of Night Shift, you need to use Night Shift to get the native thing on all your other applications.
Yeah, I was very happy that finally Apple sort of are educating all their users when they use the night shift mode, because in a way that's a tech giant saying, yes, we do realize that screens have an effect on your health and your eyes or your sleep cycle. And so they give some option like night shift, which is something at least.
The problem is that they don't care about blue light. For example, the Flux guys, they really care about sleep and blue light. And if they just allowed them and not steal their idea, the Flux application for iOS is really good. But Apple just wanted to say, we made this innovation, and they were the first. Now Microsoft has all the tech giants started implementing something like this. And the reason behind all of this is Flux and the demand for blue light reduction softwares.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, it's unfortunate there that the big giants have just copied rather than acknowledging the guys who actually invented and said it's a problem.
This is why I do Iris for desktop mostly, because you just can't copy this.
Okay.
It's really hard, and Iris is 10 times better than anything else on the desktop.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about actually setting up Iris now, because that's what I love. It can be complex programming that you've done, but the way you've done it is that it's very simple to install.
Thank you very much. This was much problem before maybe 4 months, because Iris is a really new program. It was like 20 pages of settings. But the more and more people started asking me how to install this, how to set up this, and I started making it easy and easy and easy, and it's going to be even easier in the future.
Okay. Yeah. So I found it when I installed it I've got a MacBook. It was very easy. I just clicked it. It did the normal thing, downloaded, followed the prompts, and that was it. It was all installed. And then I've got it on right now. I'm just looking at it here. I've got it on, and I've got it on health mode. And then you've got all the settings, and it's automatic. But before we get into maybe some of the different settings that are possible, what I just want to find out, because the problem I found with Flux was that when you set it to automatic, you had to actually be connected to the Wi-Fi for the software to understand where you were in the world and how to change it. But do you have to have that same? Does Iris do that same thing, or just having me cabled in? So I'm working off Ethernet, hardwired the internet. Does Iris still understand
your location?
Yeah.
Well, you need only once. For example, if you want to activate Iris, you need only once connection, or to find your location once. Once it's found it basically makes a request with your IP, and it's not a location based. Basically, I don't want to track users in any way, and you just need to connect once. You can then change the location from the settings to set it to custom location. So no, you don't need any internet connection to use Iris. It will work even on cold computer never connected to the internet, cold storage, like with Bitcoin.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just thinking too, traveling. So I'm based in the UK, but let's say I traveled somewhere else in the world in a different time zone. Right now,
you can also set the time, not the location, but the time. This is also a major problem with Flux. They just don't want to add the time feature, and I added it. And you can, on the latest version, which I made, I don't know, 1 week ago, you can set even the transition, how fast the transition should be. Should it be 1 hour or 10 minutes or 1 second? And this is also cool.
So when you mentioned time there, are you saying that that the software will see, like, understand the clock on my computer and realize it's in the morning, so I need to convert to the settings for the day?
You can set its day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and it will work with your clock, with all fine and everything.
Okay, that's good to know. So I think, as I mentioned, it's really easy to install the software, which is what I found. And I just set it to, I believe I've got it on automatic. I haven't even tried using manual, or there's also the pause settings. But there's different types now, and I touched on them earlier. So I'm just looking at it here. We've got a few. I'm just going to read it out quickly: health, sleep, reading, programming, biohacker, movie, and overlay. If you could just maybe give a little summary of what's the benefits, or why would I consider using the different types?
Yes, and this was my try to make it more user-friendly. Basically, when you open the software, you also have some blue buttons with blue button with I when you hover the setting, and it opens the help. I wrote a really extensive user manual, but the health settings is basically the settings I use, and some doctors recommend something for the new users to adapt quickly to the program with small blue light reductions during the day and big blue light reduction during the night, and something which all the people love and like and use. And it's I tested it a lot to find the balance. During the day, it will be at full brightness. During the night, the brightness will be a little bit decreased to match your room lighting, maybe. And most of the things are true for all other modes. For example, sleep mode removes all blue light.
That's very red, isn't it?
Yes, I switched it just. Reading mode is useful when you read something because it eliminates 1 sub-pixel flicker of the backlight. This is really complex to explain that, but the one of the flickers is the pulse width modulation and the LED flicker, but there is a second flicker which is sub-pixel flicker, and the reading mode eliminates it a little, which is good when you don't need exact colors. Reading mode makes the screen like a Kindle, not like a real Kindle, but it's grayscale.
Okay, so would you say then the benefit of reading would be if people were doing data where they would say doing Excel spreadsheets and Word documents?
Well, I would say that the reading mode should be the best mode for health and for using computers if you don't need colors.
Okay, because that's what I'm thinking with a lot of office workers who don't maybe need color. They're just doing data. So that's a good tip during the day. Click that onto reading mode.
Yes, it will be like a book, your entire screen.
Okay.
The programming mode is useful for programmers like me. It inverts the colors and makes if the page is black text on white background, it makes the text white and the background black. Mm-hmm. And for example, some people just like the black themes on everything, and some programs don't have a black theme. You can use programming mode to invert everything, and it's really cool. People like it. After this, there is the Biohacker. It's the inversion and the sleep thing combined. This will lower the emitted light and also remove all the blue light. It's for biohacking. If you want to switch your circadian rhythms, right? You can use the Biohacker. I just add sunglasses mode, which is only brightness reduction. If you use glasses like you, the blue light reduction glasses, you can use sunglasses mode and reduce only the brightness. But this is coming maybe next week in the iOS version. Not iOS, but OS X version.
Okay.
And
movie mode? Yeah, the movie mode, yeah.
The movie mode is something I get the idea when I was watching, I think, Star Wars or Alien versus Predator. One of these movies which the scene was really dark and I didn't see anything. And I decided, why not make the scene a little brighter? So it makes the screen a little brighter to enable you to see in dark scenes in the movie. I don't know if only I have this problem, but it's a problem for me that when I watch dark movies, scary movies, I don't see anything on the screen.
Yeah, that's true. I get the same effect if there's a dark scene in a TV series or a movie. I can't actually, it's like I lose the characters. I can't see the scenery as well. It's very hard.
Yes, that's right. And the movie mode should make this a little bit easier. It doesn't change the colors much, but makes the scene a little brighter.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
And the overlay mode, the last mode, is for old monitors and devices which doesn't support the native, because the native iris features lower the white point, while some monitors just doesn't support video card changes like this, and I place red overlay. Just like Twilight on Android and all other application blue light filters work, this is for the desktop.
Okay, so for older desktops, potentially overlay is going to work better, but for modern desktops or laptops, the other settings are perfect.
Yes, if none of the other setting works, overlay is something like safe mode.
Okay, so if I guess, is that the test then that someone would know that they need overlay mode because they tried all the others and they didn't see the changes? So
well, 99.9% of the monitors works, but I need to care about all the users, not just.
Yes. Yeah, there's some old computers out there and old systems, so.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for clearing all of that up. I think that's a good overview, and I just want to let people know too, because if you get the Pro version like I've got, then you've got loads of other settings, like as you mentioned, you can go deeper. I've just popped it open now, much deeper into this with all the settings and the tweaks that you can do. I quite liked it, even that you mentioned when you first created your software that you were using it so that you could look into the distance to help your eyes and stop looking so close to screen, because you do have a timer option. I like that, where from a productivity point of view, it's a bit like a Pomodoro, where you would say every 20, you can tweak it to whatever time you want to with your software, but you could say every 25 minutes or every 40 minutes, I want the software to come in and tell me, hey, look, you've been working for 40 minutes, just take a break.
Yes, that's one of the features, and that was actually the first feature I made, which maybe today no one uses. This is why it's not even in the free version. I wanted to make the free version enough for 95% of the people, and if the other 5% want to help support the project, they can always buy the pro version. The timer thing is good. There is actually the productive timer, which is just like a Pomodoro, one little window which is always on your screen, and you can get to know when you need to rest and when you need to work. Actually, I want to announce that I want to give a present for all your listeners. 100 activation codes for Iris and 100 activation codes for Iris Mini. We will make a code and you can post it in the notes.
Oh, fantastic. That's
with 200 pro versions of Iris.
Oh, fantastic. Like I'm sure everyone who uses that is going to appreciate that and just say thank you for that. That's such a great gesture. And, I love that too, because the more people that can use this, it means the more educated they are about why they need to use it. They find that it's not interfering with their use of the digital devices, which is a big thing, so that it's not a hindrance. And then they tell their friends, and that's how the word spreads to the world, why we need to take care of our eyes.
No, the free version is enough, but yes, and even the free version will help most people in the world.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, as just, like you said, I do wear blue blocking glasses. I'm a big fan of them, just to prevent the eye strain. And I've got the different colors for as the day goes through for my daytime and my nighttime glasses. But yeah, I believe the software is also a must. I use it all the time. So that's fantastic to educate people. So we talked about those different modes. And you've already touched on it now, that there's different versions of Iris. So you've got the free application that people can start with, but then you've got Iris, Iris Mini, Iris Micro, Iris OS, and Iris Floss. So there's different types of irises when they land on your website that they'll see.
Yes, the idea behind most of them is to suit different people. For example, Iris Mini, the idea is to not because Iris has UI. It doesn't.
Sorry, could you just explain what UI means to people who might not
user
realize?
Interface.
Okay.
User interface. The window, the settings panel. So Iris has this, and even if it doesn't use much of a CPU, some people just want a program which uses zero CPU. And Iris Mini is just a tray icon, which works automatically and doesn't use any CPU at all. Iris Micro is for command line. If you know what a terminal is, it's for programmers.
Okay.
And Iris Floss is open source for Linux, because Linux users are important also. There is also open source version of Iris.
Okay, so yeah, depending on what system you use, then you've got the option.
But when you click the download button, I redirect to the version for your PC, the best.
So, I think. So how whatever device you've used to go onto the website, your website's smart enough to say, hey, I can see you're on this one. This is going to be the best one.
Yes, this is to not make a confusion. What is this? All these things.
Yeah. Okay. So really, because I didn't realize then. So the Iris Mini and Iris itself is just that the Mini uses less CPU, which is like resources on your computer.
And it has a little bit less options. It's a little bit more user friendly, more easy to use. It doesn't. For example, if you open the advanced settings of Iris, you have many options.
Yes.
And Iris Mini is packed with the blue light and the brightness reduction, just only this.
Okay. Are there any specific tips that you would maybe like to let people know? Because you've also got a cool little feature in here I'm just having a look again with your hidden features. I love it. It looks like an old Pac-Man. Actually, that reminds me, there's another thing I need to ask you about. But so the hidden features part that you've got in the Pro version?
Well, the idea is that at the beginning, many people just wanted, can you add me this? And I'm super good with people. And I just was adding all the time features. And at one point, Iris was 30 pages of settings. And half of these settings no one uses. And I just decided to not remove the features, but hide them somehow. So the users which want to use them to write some comment with text and activate it, and all the other people to not get confused. This is the basic idea behind hidden features. We have some magical spells which activate hidden parts of the program. And this is actually really special. And I don't think there is some other program in the world which have this. It's really cool.
Yeah, I like it. It's like a treasure hunt on your software.
There is a help, and you can see all the hidden features. On the blue buttons, when you click it, it opens all the magic spells with every types.
Okay, cool. So people who want to get, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to have your person who just wants it set up and go, just automatically just take care of me. But then you'll have the other side of the spectrum where you have people who want to play with as many settings as possible to customize it to their needs.
Yes, for example, you can disable Iris starting at startup. Not many people want to not start Iris at startup and when you start your PC, but some won't. Mm-hmm. Some want to start it whenever they want. Or, for example, you can... Let me see. You can set some features from there faster. For example, to change the temperature with commands, or you can disable Iris on second monitor or the first monitor, and features like this.
Okay. So that's what I'm thinking. Are there any tips for very advanced users in this situation that you would maybe highlight to people if they were really wanting to go heavy into something on their screen for eye health here?
No, maybe the hidden features are the most advanced. Other things I try to make them as easy as possible, and they should be understandable for most people. And I always try to have up-to-date documentation of all the features. And when you hover something, you can see what it does, why it does it, and what it will change. So maybe...
Yeah, so just play with the features. Just go in there and have some fun.
Maybe if you're a person which works with colors, you have color pausers and timer pausers, which is basically when you start Photoshop to stop Iris. When the Photoshop window is open, to stop Iris to not conflict with your colors, which is nice.
Okay, so yeah, if you're doing lots of heavy graphics with Photoshop.
Yes, or you can enable some artificial intelligence to detect your room brightness with the camera, but this is disabled by default because it's really creepy your software to use your camera by default. And nobody will watch you. Everything is local, but it's disabled by default.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So I'm not installing a piece of National Security Agency software or FBI software.
Yes, and you can also select part of the screen on Windows, make part screen color changes with the overlay, with the screen overlay. This is the second feature of the overlay. You can select only part of the screen, which will be with lower blue light, and the other part of the screen will be with normal colors. This is again for designers and people who work with colors.
Oh, I'm thinking even... I didn't know that. So if I had multi-monitors, so say you use two screens, you could make one screen overlay red and the other one just normal.
You can actually, this is your idea, you can do this with Manage Monitors page. You can select which monitor is active.
Okay, all right. But even there, if I had one big monitor, then you're saying I could make a section of the monitor just using the overlay. Oh, very cool.
On the one side, you can... But this is only for Windows right now. It's a little bit tricky for OS X.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are little differences in the versions because I manage like 25 versions alone, and it's a little harder to keep them up to date, all of them.
Well, yeah, I can only imagine the ecosystem of understanding the code for this operating system and this operating system and this operating system. That's I know basic HTML code, and so that's nothing compared to like the amount of code that you have to understand for all these different. It's like languages for all these different systems.
Yes, that's right.
And if you change a little bit over here, it could completely, mess something up. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But this is my job.
Uh-huh.
This is what I choose.
The other thing I want to ask you, talking about I like your graphics. It's very playful, very simple. It's not complicated, and it's fun. It makes you smile when you look at your software too. I like that. And but you have an option there in your TED Talk. I think maybe you did it, or I saw it somewhere on your website, that you educated people that the font on the letters that we see on our screen, they're actually blurred to make them look nicer, aren't they?
Yes. This is called font smoothing. On OS X, it's called font smoothing. On Windows, the font smoothing technology is called ClearType. And actually, the Windows font rendering is better than the Mac font rendering, because Mac users always want to be as beautiful as possible, and they made as blurry letters as possible. And blurry letters are actually not so good. You need...
Yeah, sorry. I'll let you continue with the blurry letters.
You need crispy letters the eye needs some rough edges to focus on the screen. Otherwise, you just stare and try to concentrate on the page. And the more crispy your screen is, the more. For example, you can also place some sand on your monitor, and this will help you read a little bit better.
What did you say? Place some?
Sand, or make some scratches with the knife on your monitor.
That's what I thought you said. Wow.
I'm really serious. This will help your eye focus a little.
Wow. Okay. So if you have a
well, this is like the crispy letters. This is the same thing, but you just make physical crispy things on your screen.
Okay. I don't think many people listening to this are going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to take
don't do this. This is not my advice for you. Really. I don't advise you to make
I've got multi-$1,000 or pound screen, and I'm just going to take a brush and quickly.
But when, for example, when I was small, my mom always told me that my screen is not so clean, to clean it all the time. And now I realize that it's actually better to have a dirty screen.
Okay. So what we're talking about here is that the problem is that modern screens and operating systems, to make it look beautiful, to make the fonts look very pretty, they actually take the pixeled version, what we would think of if anyone grew up with computers in the 80s, that you see very pixeled letters, and that's actually still happening on modern computers, but they can blur the edges to make it look pretty.
Yes, for example, if there is a white and dark, white and black, they place also gray. This is like they blur the letter. It's called subpixel font rendering, or they use the subpixels of the screen to blur the letters. And these are pixels which our eye and brain cannot process, but we can focus on them.
And that was another tip that you found when you entered the world of programming and computers and learning more about how tech companies produce things, that we want to see more pixelated letters because it's easier to read. It's easier on the eye.
Yes, and Iris has this option. It's called simple fonts.
Mm-hmm.
There are, on the different operating system, it's called with different names. I think on OS X it's called font smoothing 1, font smoothing 2, and there are different levels of font smoothing. But basically, I use ClearType right now, but the best, the healthiest fonts will be the simple fonts, which are really rough with really crispy edges.
Okay, and just to help people listening again, that Iris will do that for me if I click that setting.
Yes, but it's not by default. You need to go to the fonts page, and this is in the pro version. It's not in the free version.
Yeah, but again, I think that's a great tip if you're reading things all day long, other than using the reading mode, actually learning that you want how the pixels work, how the letters can be displayed to you too. is another hack that you can do to help
And
put less strain on your eyes.
Most of the things you just see one drop down with different font renderings, but this to code up is like 1 month work or more.
Uh-huh.
The font ink was like 3 months, I think. Only the font ink, focus on the font ink. And it's really a complex piece of software, I think.
Yeah, and this is again another unique point, I believe, with your software, because other software doesn't look at changing things like that, from an eye health perspective.
Well, I just think they don't care enough about the eyes. I really care about the eyes because I was a sportsman and I trained all my life. I try to live really healthy and I care a lot about my eyes.
Yeah, because people might not realize, I read in your story, was it that you were trying to become an Olympic rower?
Yes, I tried like 6 years.
Oh, because I did rowing at school. I never progressed further into higher competitive rowing, but I had a Olympic rower. Well, no, did she make the Olympics, Brianna? A British rower. She rowed, all the big events there, and she's a world champion rower too, Brianna Stubbs, and she's a ketone researcher now. But yeah, it's always fun meeting fellow rowers. So I know
Yes.
I know how hard it must be to try get to Olympic level.
Well, yes, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's insanely hard.
15 years to even get to the good, but nope, it happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. Daniel, I just want to say you've educated me so much about the software today and all the different settings, and I hope people listening too can understand why they want to put something like your software on their devices, and it can be as simple as just install it and just click the automatic settings, and you're already improving or helping your eye health. And if you want to get more advanced, you can with your software too. So what's the best ways that people can find out more? Because I'm going to link to things in the show notes. Is because you've got your website and you've got Facebook and you've got Twitter and you've got all the different social media profiles, don't you?
Well, I try to write the information in English on the Iris website. I have on my blog many articles, but they're in Bulgarian, so.
Okay.
But on the Iris website, there are a lot of information about these things we talked about, and yes, I'll improve it in the future.
Okay, fantastic. And the website address is
iristech.co, not .com, but .co.
Yeah.
It's a strange domain, but when I started, I was really poor, and I'm actually not so rich right now. But this was the only domain name that I get for Iris. And it's strange domain, but it's one of the, when you write Iris in Google, one of the first results is Iris.
That's cool. Good. Yeah. Well, I mean, I see it with most programming companies. Yeah, they always look for like .io or it's something not just .com. So
well, I wanted iris.com, but it's taken.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you've got lots more information on your website there.
Or you can actually go to irismini.com or irismicro.com or irisonly.com. These are also my domain names.
Okay, so they all redirect to the main site.
Yes,
fantastic.
That's right.
All right. Yeah, again, thank you so much for sharing everything. And yeah, for anyone who also wants, this is on YouTube, so you can watch it. And I'll get that code from you so that everyone can install it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your invite and for this podcast and for everything.